The officer has already gone to the restaurant, hoping to have lunch in peace. However, things took a shocking turn when a little boy approached him and whispered something in your ear already. Immediately asked for reinforcements one day. Stirred for Officer Jace the bright sun. Defeated him and he had to chase various criminals. What exhausted him from the little strength he had then when he dragged his weary body to the restaurant during your break too. Lunch was a great relief while he was waiting for his meal. He already looked at himself at the restaurant. He was a regular face there, always taking your lunch break. In that place many of the customers, they recognized and waved to him. Waved back with a smile. Knowing almost everyone present at the, yet while your tired eyes, they traveled through the restaurant, he noticed that there were two people he could recognize. Little boy and his father. The boy was sitting in a chair, your little legs stretched out to off the edge. Already immediately noticed that the boy looked tired and bored. Your father was sitting next to her, but the man was busy in a threatening thunder and brimstone binding to whoever was on the other end of the line. Boy looked no more than 4 years old, but one could already swear that the so-called high of his father was leaving him. Embarrassed. Soon the meal has already arrived and he began to eat every piece that put it in his mouth. He realized how hungry was in the minutes that followed. He focused on little else. However, he realized not long after the little boy had become lifted from his seat and lay watching with curiosity, shameless of a child already. He stopped what he was doing and studied the boy. At first when his eyes found the boy, looked away, but a few seconds later your eyes, they went back to the policeman. Already looked at each other, to the father who was still busy in his connection. Actually he was getting angrier by the minute. The boy then approached cautiously. Get your little eyes on the cop. He was getting closer to him one step at a time. Like I'm scared of Jas. Somehow Jas didn't like it. I wanted to reassure the boy, then smiled warmly, hoping that this made the little boy relax. He was wrong at the moment when the boy panicked and came back quickly to where his father was already sitting down. He just laughed, imagining what the boy had heard about cops who made him so afraid of them in the. However, he felt that none of this was of his immediate account. Then focused to finish your meal. When he finished eating, he realized that the little boy watched again. However, this time there was something different in his look at something else. Profo, his eyes could already feel that something wrong. The feeling was very strong and he knew he couldn't just ignore it. After a few minutes the little boy got out of his seat and started to approach Jas. Your father was still holding phone face, leaning against the wall. As I continued his angry speech, the man ignored completely the little boy throughout the Jas stay. Didn't say anything while the boy approached him, remembering of how it had been last time already. Chose not to make any moves. Abruptly he could see that the boy wanted talk to him, but he was too shy or too scared. No longer wanted to do nothing that would make him run away again. Little boy looked uncertainly at Jackie afterwards. Back to your father, taking a deep breath, as if he were taking courage from inside. He covered the distance remaining until the policeman. Soon he was so close that you could already touch it and even smell the burger in your breath. The little boy leaned over and whispered something to him. Already turned pale. He knew something had to be done. Immediately he needed to think. Ever wondered the name of the little boy? And he said it was Billy. Already nodded in appreciation and asked him to if he sat in the chair next to him. He promised Billy that he would save his mother and wouldn't let your father take you anywhere. None. While Billy's father still, I made furious calls on the phone already. He took out his radio and immediately asked reinforcements. He made a brief summary of the situation and said he needed them as soon as possible. He assumed that the man was armed. In addition to that, there had been other customers in the restaurant. Then the last thing we wanted was that everything got worse and that innocent civilians hurt. He's willing to wait that the reinforcement arrived before doing any movement. However, nothing could have stopped already. For what then happened a few minutes after dropping the radio, Billy's father finally dropped his phone. He had an angry look on the left, neck-twisting face to the right to get the squeaks out. He then turned around and realized that Billy, I was no longer by your side. Immediately his eyes widened. He stood up, looking around. He froze. The moment he saw Billy sitting next to the side of the policeman who was watching him. Astutely, the peak has already been noticed, filling the man's eyes in spite of his mistakes for hide it. Breathing from the bottom, the man walked slowly toward Jason. He told his son it was time to go. Though Billy started to get up, but already held on to him, determined not to let the boy returns to the man until he had investigated their allegations. Thinking fast, man has already been told, and Billy told me he's hungry. You forgot to ask him for something. You can't walk away. So your voice was firm and her grip on Billy was inab. The man looked furious and told Jas to take care of his own life. He demanded that his son be released immediately so that they could resume the journey, but already refused. Instead, he asked for a means of identification. With a grunt of frustration, the man pulled out a wallet from identity. It has already been seen that his name was Alfred and noted that he was a lawyer. At that moment you already felt a twinge of worry that he might be going too far. After all, a lawyer. How Alfred would know he shouldn't break the law and could even file a complaint against Jas, potentially costing you your job. And if he was wrong about the whole situation, and if this was a scheme, cruel of someone else using the kid, innocent, as a pawn, he briefly considered letting Billy return to her father. However, looked at the face the boy's terrified, changed his mind, instantly berating himself for even consider that. Jay remembered that Alfred being a lawyer doesn't meant he couldn't commit a crime beyond that. Billy had come to him voluntarily with a complaint, giving Ja legal basis for he knew he had to go. By the end, the credit card has been returned. The identification to Alfred stated firmly that Billy would have lunch before anything else. Then Alfred realized that he would not have his son. Immediately the fury writhed the Alfred's features as he looked at the around the restaurant in scream and terror. This reaction only strengthened the conviction of Jas that something suspicious was happening. Given that Alfred was a lawyer, it was already expected that he rebuts with your legal rights and argue that he had no reason to arrest Billy. Instead, Alfred's response, it looked more and more suspicious, with more a frantic look of horror at your around. Alfred turned and ran in direction to exit the restaurant. However, he came across with a support team of police officers who they immediately arrested Alfred. Resisted arrest. He fought them with everything we had. We needed 3 cops to finally arrest him so that your wrists could be handcuffed behind him. So he went dragged up and taken to I'll make each of you pay. You will regret it, losers. He cursed as he was led away. He promised that he would come back to get it, Billy, and that no one would be able to stopping him. Has already been told to the other police officers to take Alfred to the police station to processing. Then he turned to Billy and asked where his mother was. Little boy in panic replied that she was still at home and that I was seriously injured. It was already known that the time was of the essence, and if she ever had it been bleeding, could have missed a lot of blood. Has Billy ever wondered if he knew the address of his house? Boy didn't know, but he could describe a toy store near of his home so that Jas could discover the Jas neighborhood immediately. Listened Billy to his patrol car while Alfred was taken to the Jas police station, and Billy went in the opposite direction. 4-year-old boy pointed energetically to the store when we saw and gave instructions to Jas on where to go to your home. From there it was only a short walk. Eventually they drive distance. They arrived at a small house at the end of the year. Has already instructed Billy to stay in the car. He locked and then quickly drew his firearm and assured ready as he approached. Quickly from the house the door opened with ease, a clear sign that Alfred had not locked it. As he left, entering the living room, immediately caught sight of the Billy's mother lying on the carpet floor. It was stained red. Help, the woman managed to say faintly before to close your pale eyes and Tearful people have already quickly caught his radio and called an ambulance with urgency, providing the address as soon as he finished. He knelt next to the woman and began to manage the first aid, working for stop the bleeding. The ambulance arrived quickly, and by then it was already managed to stop the bleeding. Doctors rushed her to the hospital, struggling to stabilize its condition during the trip in the hospital. Doctors quickly took over their care throughout this trial. Billy cried uncontrollably with fear of losing his mother has comforted him, assuring him that the doctors were doing everything possible to save your mother while she was in the living room emergency. He and Billy waited on the side. As soon as the little boy calmed down, Ever felt it was the right time to ask you some talking questions. Gently, carefully, it gently questioned Billy attentively, not to overwhelm you after such an experience. Billy revealed that it was Alfred, his father, who hurt his mother. He told to have seen her father attack her, explaining how terrified he was. Billy. He also mentioned that his parents were divorced and that Alfred had come to take you away when your mother resisted Alfred to hurt. It was already known that there was more to the story, but chose to not pressing, more confident that the other details would emerge over time. If you were in the hospital for a few hours, making sure Billy was okay and his mother was in stable condition. Fortunately, no major organ was damaged, and she just lost so much blood that was being replaced. Later, she regained the consciousness, and the first person she asked to see it was her son. She stayed so glad when jail brought it to her. She hugged him tightly and apologized out loud for all he had passed. Hours later, while Billy slept next to her, already interviewed, his story turned out to be painful and horrifying. She presented herself as, and Jasmine told him that like any another newlywed, she was anxious to live the rest of your life with your beloved husband. However, things took a drastic turn in a way that she could never have expected. Alfred's career took a turn significant shortly after Billy was born. He was promoted to partner in his firm, which brought him countless advantages. Now he earned more, but started to stay out late with more frequency. He was always, and many sometimes he was away from home for days and weeks. Was too painful for Jasmine, 'cause she was alone without him. What it all got worse was that when he came back of his travels, he did not share private moments with her. I locked all day in the office. When she tried to start a conversation with him, said in an angry voice that she was invading her privacy and disturbing. Jasmine struggled to understand the devastating actions of his husband. She couldn't understand how he had transformed from a husband, loving and attentive, in a stranger without heart with each passing day. When she finally figured out why, she was beyond broken. One day Alfred left for work as usual at the however, about an hour later, Jasmine realized that he had forgotten his briefcase. The bag contained all his important documents, and she knew that important was to his work. He decided take it to him because he was sure of that he's looking for her. Eluli. For him to stop sweating, yearly went to. So I put the folder and went to your company in or hi su vida cuando there, and I couldn't. So his office was empty, and not even his secretary was in place. None. She cornered the woman who cleaned the office, but the woman refused to speak. Only when he had already bribed with some money, she revealed that Alfred was on leave. She said he hadn't been to work in more than a year. This week was a big shock for Jasmine because Alfred never told her that he was on leave. He was waking up every day and going to work. Cheating and lying to her was too much. Suspicious, she then promised to go to the bottom. From the question, she hired an investigator, private, to track down Alfred and find out what he was doing to. Investigation took a month, and when the private investigator returned, it came with many photos and evidence in video of Alfred luring with his secretary. She saw pictures of him getting entertaining in luxurious restaurants and five-star hotels. They even made exotic cruises in the bars. If these were all things he never had done with it when Alfred returned to house that night she threw the pictures. He angrily tried to gas him, leading to think it was all her fault. That he was attracting, however, she didn't fall for it. She told him she had finished with him and was divorcing him. Divorce? You can't divorce me. You won't leave me. I won't let you do it, he screamed. Jasmine told him that he couldn't stop her or make her change her mind. She was leaving her marriage with her son. He then got angry and beat her. This was the first time he hit in it, and she made sure that it did not. There would be another. She ran away with Billy to stay with her sister while she was there. She filed for divorce. Alfred fought against divorce, using all the loopholes in the legal system so that he could obtain the custody of. He couldn't force her to stay with him. But I knew that if I had custody of Billy, she'd have no choice but staying married to him too. I knew that if she left him, he wouldn't. There'd be no one else to trust him. He was even willing to stoop to point to paint it as Ma and make it to look like an inadequate mother just for securing a win. Was a divorce complicated, but she prevailed. She had a mountain of evidence against him, and after more than a year of battle, she was finally free of Alfred. He didn't like it, however, and began to threaten her and chase her. He told her that no court could tell him when it would all be over. Only he could decide. That scared her. He returned to court and filed a restraining order against him. The court granted, and Alfred was ordered to stay away from her and Billy. That only it infuriated even more. Just a month later, Alfred invaded Jasmine's house and attacked her. Do you think you can take my son from me? You're crazy. You think I'll let you steal Billy of me? He screamed as he hit. He didn't even care that Billy, if he was there. The little boy ran to the mom and hugged Dad. Stop hurting Mom. Stop it, he screamed as he tries protect her from her father's wrath. I'll find another mama for you, Alfred sneered. Then he grabbed Billy and ran out of the house. Jasmine, seriously wounded, could only watch helplessly while Alfred took his son away. Jasmine's story has already touched deeply, and he promised to help her get the justice he deserved. When finished interviewing Jasmine, he left the hospital and returned to the police station where Alfred was still detainee. He then transferred him to the living room. From interrogation to interrogation, Alfred resisted for a while, claiming that was innocent. Yet when I knew that Jasmine had survived the attack and was recovering in the hospital, realized that it was all over for. He confessed everything, and his story, it also matched what Jasmine had said. However, he added that had his escape all planned. He was planning to take Billy to another country where they could start a new life in a place where absolutely no one he knew them. However, his getaway car not arrived. They were supposed to meet at the restaurant, but the person never showed up. Was the man he called on. The restaurant driver claimed that was late in traffic, which left Alfred so angry. This anger distracted him from keep an eye on Billy, and eventually everything was exposed. Was a story, and has already promised himself that I would do everything I could to ensure that Alfred received the maximum penalty for what did Jasmine and Billy. He had sure the lawyer would stay out for a long time. When he has returned to Jasmine's hospital, was pretty much better. Told her that her son had been instrumental in rescue her. He had been brave enough to ask the police officer for help, though Alfred was right next to him. Jasmine hugged her son tightly and thanked her, apologized for him being in that position. From now on she would not protect the other way around. It was already happy with the way things it happened. Bill and Jasmine were fine, and he was sure that they would. They have completely recovered, with so much that had each other on the day that Alfred was sentenced to prison. Already Jasmine were present. They watched as he was taken to far from the police officers. When he was taken to the vehicle that would take him back to the prison, he cried. It was a deserved end to the monster. He was the end. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to click the like button and subscribe. This other story on your screen too will entertain you.